What is going on, guys? Isaiah and I are back. I'm Christian.
I'm Isaiah.
Don't sound so sad about it, man. Jeez.
Oh, I'm Isaiah. Hi.
And today, what are we talking about, Isaiah?
Today we'll be talking about mental health in the terms of drug usage and how that can affect your mental health, and how one can become dependent on it and how it can basically create a cycle. We're also going to be talking about alternatives to drug use in terms of like hobbies, your lifestyle, and such like that. So
Yeah.
let's get it started.
Yeah, sweet. So this podcast is going to be a lot more structured than the last time.
Yes.
Last time was a lot of us just kind of messing around and seeing what the audience liked. But I think we got a solid communication feedback from you guys. Yeah. So we decided to do this, and hopefully you guys like it as much as we do. We have a strong history in it. I feel like we can offer some advice and some of our standpoints, but also kind of just talk about it like we do.
Yeah.
So Isaiah,
yeah, I second that.
Yeah. So do you want to start us off with like your history and kind of how we got into this idea of mental numbness and drug use,
for sure.
alcohol, stuff like that?
So I, growing up, really kind of stayed away from heavy alcohol usage and heavy drug usage. You know, I didn't use any hard drugs, and I still never really have. But in terms of, dabbling within the marijuana, the devil's lettuce, whatever you want to call it.
The marijuans.
the Juana. I really heavily depended on that my sophomore and junior year of college, and it took me to like my senior year to actually realize that I started using it as a crutch for kind of my mental health, because as college progressed, with different aspects of my life being that of my my relationship, my schooling, friends and family members passing, I didn't open up about my feelings and my emotional state. Instead, I chose to kind of suppress myself, and why really kind of use marijuana in the sense of just smoking it, and then setting my day aside, not really having a structured lifestyle. Like, it was more so like, I'm starting to feel this feeling, and straight into I'll just go roll up a joint, smoke it real quick, or take a quick long rip, and then
chill out or something.
You go about your day, and that can be, marijuana's cool. I'm not gonna deny, I'm not gonna be hypocritical about it. Right. I still love marijuana to this day. If I could smoke it right now, I probably would, but you gotta get those job offers, so
right.
We gotta stay off it, gotta stay clean, just follow the law. But in terms of just becoming dependent on it, I think you really got to look back and kind of double down on your feelings and analyze what's going on in your life, and the structure of what we can do to come up with a daily routine and make sure that we're not only being open about our feelings, but we're not suppressing them as well. That's where I'm getting at that with my history here too. And I know you've kind of used marijuana too, in terms of just suppressing and keeping it down. I think you'd like to hear that too.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll just open it up right here. But to start, I want to preface this by saying I think marijuana is very beneficial for medicinal reasons. I think that it has a lot of great physical effects on the body. I think it's a great anti-inflammatory. 2 years ago, I can go into this more in another podcast, but 2 years ago,
yes, he can.
I started dealing with a lot of like physical manifestations of issues I was having, whether they be mental or what, I was thinking maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's depression. I'm still not sure to this day. What I do think I do have is Lyme disease. I got some tests, things, to make sure I had it or not, and the species of bacteria is very evasive of the tests that they use in your blood to see if it's actually in your tissues. So I still don't know for sure, but I've had a lot of the symptoms, and I've gone to doctors and gotten clinical diagnosis to see, or to show me what I do have. But anyway, I'm kind of digressing here. Anyway, yes, marijuana I think is a great thing. I think it's helped so many people. It's got great use for cancer patients. It's got great, physical healing properties. However, I started to use it a lot because I realized, wow, like this is making me feel a lot better. A lot of my pain's going away. I feel like I don't...
No, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, like I just felt like I didn't have any of the headaches I was having anymore. I just felt really good, and I felt like I was able to live a normal life if I was able to smoke a little bit before bed, and I would just have a good night's rest, and then the next day I would feel healthy.
Yeah, I remember you coming to me and actually talking about your joints, how they felt like a lot better after you would smoke and such like that. Even
not like paper joints of weed, but like my joints, like they would hurt, like my bones would just feel like they were aching, like I'm a 100-year-old man, and I'm 22, by the way. So
we're both 22.
We're both 22. I'm sorry, I should have included you.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's okay. But yeah, it would actually help a lot. And I would, as I realized that it was helping me physically, I started to read more and more into miracle stories and stuff where people were sharing their information and history with the drug and saying, oh my gosh, like I used it to heal this, and I healed this, and I healed that. So I really just went, really balls to the wall with the whole thing, and I ended up doing it really often. And it started to lead to a lot of emotional stuff. I realized that I was using it I kind of like drifted away a little bit from the medicinal properties of it, and I kind of used it in a way to...
recreational standpoint?
Yeah, and like, how it is. Like sometimes if you want to chill out, or if you just want to...
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, nothing. It's perfectly fine. Go ahead.
Like I remember the way that both you and I were using it. Like we just... like sometimes, bro, it was like 3-4 times a day. If you're keeping that up on like a daily to a weekly to a monthly process, like that's taking some toll on your body. Yeah. And your mind. Everyone thinks, like marijuana, it's just so much better than alcohol because it doesn't affect your liver, and it's not a toxin, and it comes from a plant, bro. And it's like, I agree with all that. I think it's a great alternative, but there are negatives to everything. You gotta have everything in moderation. So, long story short, it made a lot of my anxiety worse. It made my depression a little bit worse, and sometimes to this day I still struggle with thinking about whether I should use it, and I kind of weigh the pros and cons. I think, okay, physically it would help me, but mentally maybe it wouldn't so much. Here's another thing I could use that would help me with my pain, but maybe wouldn't give me the high. And then we get into CBD, but like really it's just like, we're not even just talking about weed in this sense, we're just talking about numbing your brain with whatever you might numb it with. Yeah, because I have a couple of friends across the border, like states, other countries, and some of them, they dabble in other drugs, and it's... I'm never gonna tell you not to do something, but if it's something that I think you should definitely be careful and advise yourself and double check, I will voice that, and I'll keep tabs with you, make sure you're not using it, especially with growing up and having a situation where I lost my friend to drug usage. It's definitely like one of those concerning points. I don't want to ever restrict anyone on the way they live their life, but in terms of being protective in a sense of my love for another human being, in terms of friendship, I don't ever want to see you just consistently numbing yourself. I can understand a good time, but there comes to a point where we can look at each other and realize that you're not using it for a good time anymore. You're using it as a point of a high, a literal high for your daily, your daily day, and
for your daily happiness to cope.
Yeah, and there's got to be a growing point right there, and it doesn't ever have to be by yourself. But I can tell you through personal experience that it's most definitely going to have to come from yourself. It's almost like you can have all these people running down your throat, like doing whatever and telling you, this you can't be doing this. Well, that only goes so far. It only gets to a point where you realize that you're not immortal. We're humans. We die. We will eventually die someday, and you live with that mortality. That you realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this because I want to be able to see tomorrow. I want to be able to go out next week, and have fun with my friends. But you can't do that if you OD. And my whole thing is, there's this endless thought process that kind of goes into like a cycle of depression and anxiety. And if you don't really develop a daily routine in terms of looking towards that drug usage for that daily high of the day.
Yeah, because it's so easy, really. It's, and I'm not trying to, I have no experience with harder drugs or anything, but it's a lot easier to cover something up and push it under the rug than it is to bite the bullet and deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just from my personal standpoint, from my life experience.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it can be a tool. Not the harder drugs, obviously, but I think certain things we do to cope can be tools in the broad spectrum, not just drugs. Like if we play video games, for example, if you're a dude who just likes to chill out after work, come home, play video games, play some Warzone, whatever, it's okay to do that. Maybe it's okay for you to have a drink every now and again, or maybe whatever you are used to, maybe you have your method, maybe you have your routine, and that's completely okay. And we're not telling you that's wrong, but what we're trying to say is that it can be overdone, and we're speaking from experience, and we're not trying to prove anyone wrong, we're not trying to tell anyone they're wrong. It's kind of how
everyone's different.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to, I'm not ever going to tell you how to live your life, but just know that when you do decide to make the decisions that you do when you do decide to do the decisions that you partake throughout your daily routine, just think about others involved in your life, and in terms of not how they would judge you, but knowing that their love for you would be very much hurt if you were to overstep and overdo with whatever you're doing. It could be a coke overdose, it could be a heroin overdose, it could be alcohol poisoning. Those all can lead to very fatal consequences in terms of your body, your mind, and it can heavily affect those around you that truly care for you and truly love you. And it's hard. It's not ever easy. It's not ever going to be easy. Life is just a journey of pain and a traveling, like, in all honesty, it's like a hike. It's a hike to the summit. And once we reach the summit, we can say that's the highest point in our life, but there's always something unknown beyond a certain point.
The mountain's always going up, and you always got to keep climbing that mountain. And sometimes the mountain kind of flattens out and you're just chilling a little bit, but sometimes you got to keep going, and sometimes it's harder than it would have been. I guess that kind of goes into our next point of our thought process and how it's affected by overdoing something to suppress your emotion. And I kind of want to talk more about just hobbies in general that might suppress your emotions and little things that we might do unknowingly. with our loved ones, with our partners, with our friends, that kind of distance us from feeling and kind of spiral us into that cycle of depression. Yeah, when I'm talking about the endless thought cycle, for me, I've struggled with this my entire life, and I don't know if other people struggle about it, because I've honestly, I've talked to my friends about it, I've talked to my girlfriend about it, I've talked to my parents, but like, I don't know if this is a normal thing. But for me, and I know you've seen this side of me, I can get into the habit of just overthinking about one thing consistently and constantly, to the point where it's just driving me mad. Like, I could have a perfectly awesome thing right in front of me, and I will just like obsess about it for no reason, almost like I just need to figure it out. And I feel like I'm not like done with it until I can like figure it out and understand it and kind of chill, and then afterwards I can be like, okay, I'm good. Now I can relax. Now I can take it easy and actually enjoy the thing I'm talking about.
I've seen that side of you for sure. It's definitely not just a you thing. Okay. I want to say that's part of, the depression and anxiety that comes along with life. Because one thing that I've realized in talking to you and talking to many others like us, is everyone within the cycle of depression, anxiety, somehow in some way experiences that same feeling. There is this constant, endless thought that kind of just lingers, whether it be on the frontal course of your mind, your temporal, where you're constantly thinking of it in the now, or whether it be pushed back within your subconscious because you're so focused on the actual now of what's going on, like what you are doing in the moment. However, it returns at some point within that day, that week, and it becomes that lingering standpoint again. And it's not until we actually figure out the why that point kind of subsides. And so until we figure out that why, it's like, what am I doing? Like why is this always on my mind? Like, I just don't get it. Like, how do I find the answer? Is there a reason why I'm thinking this right now? And sometimes it's a valid point to consistently be thinking that, because I like to say that your body tries to tell you things when you need to hear them.
Yeah.
But it also can be a trickery of the mind as well.
Exactly, man.
To that kind of depression and anxiety state that you are stuck in. And
so you think it's actually a byproduct of anxiety and depression?
Oh my God, for sure. And because my whole thing is, I can definitely state, at least throughout my experiences, I can have many thoughts throughout the day, but when I know my depression and anxiety is high, it's like I can't move on from just one singular thought. And sometimes that singular thought can just last me the day, the next day, the whole week, and
until you're drained.
Yeah, and it's so mentally draining. And
how have we never had this talk before? I'm so confused.
That's why we're here.
That is why we're here. I'm happy we're here and we're talking about this, and I'm glad other people can experience it too. But like, for the longest time, I thought I was just like that. I just thought that's how I was. I never realized that you were like that. I never realized that other people are like that.
And that's the thing. Like, it's all about opening up, and that's another thing about like anxiety and depression is like, we get those thoughts and we're like, we automatically think we're the only one to think that way, when in reality, most likely we're not. There's a lot of thoughts that throughout this world, many people experience the same type of thought. However, you're not going to fully understand each other's perspective in the thoughts of how you came to that thought. So like, you and I can talk back and forth, and like, this is
for hours.
This is kind of like my own little theory here, is like, there's three perspectives amongst everything. Okay. A lot of people say there's my shoes and there's your shoes. Okay. And that's one way to put it, right? However, so there's the thought that I'm conveying to you, and you're trying to comprehend that. And then there's your thought that you give to me, and I'm trying to comprehend that. And then there's the actual truth. And I call this the truthful thought, and
it's so complex.
It is. I like to say it's a little complex. I don't try to get it's kind of like a philosophical thought.
But you're
in a
right,
way.
though. Yeah, you're right.
And it's like you and I can always understand our perspective in the sense of two beings. However, we will never know truly what we went through in each other's lives to get to that actual truthful thought. So even now, in talking what we're talking about, you and I empathize and understand what we've gone through in each other's lives. However, I don't know everything about your life. Right. I don't know every experience that you've gone through, so I don't truly understand everything. I can try my best and try to comprehend it to the best of my ability, and that's called effort in my eye, effort and love and appreciation for you.
Yeah.
But I have to also acknowledge that there's a little bit, if I don't acknowledge it, it's kind of like ignorance and arrogance in a way, to just say I don't know everything about you. And I feel like if you start to understand that and you start to kind of spread that knowledge, then you can also understand that not everyone's going to truly get you, and that's okay.
Yeah, so I guess...
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah. I guess sometimes people always emphasize, oh my God, my first relationship happened. And this person, they broke my heart. And I know I talked about this in the last podcast, but they broke my heart, and I'm having trouble loving again, or I'm having trouble feeling like I'm not going to get cheated on, or I have this mental insecurity, or this, my point being, everyone always focuses on the big life events and kind of records them in their brain and says, okay, let's overthink about that to the point where we can fix it, and we can fix ourselves for whatever reason, so that we don't self-destruct every great situation that we have. But it's not always the big events in your life that caused you to think that way. A lot of times it's daily small things you're going through and the way you're reacting to simple problems and situations in life that make you feel like you are losing the battle, and it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I actually was sent a few thinking patterns of people that tend to overthink and have anxiety and depression, and things you can do and kind of help identify them so that you can practice not doing them.
Yeah.
So let me know if you do any of these, or what you think about all these.
For sure.
So I know mind reading is a big one for me. I can get really cocky, and I can feel like, oh my God, I definitely know what that person's thinking. So this is pretty much just assuming we know what others are thinking, usually about us. So I feel like that's super destructive. And I feel like that's something I do almost every day. And until I was sent this list of negative thinking patterns, I haven't once in 22 years of existence stopped and thought, maybe I shouldn't do that. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, for sure. It's weird with me personally because I kind of self-identify, and my mother also thinks this too, is I like to say I'm empathetic. I'm a natural empath, so I can pick up on feelings very easily, very quickly. However, within that, feeling someone's aura, feeling what they're thinking, I don't kind of zone in that I know their thought. However, I do zone in on the fact of I know what they're feeling, because you can tell basically through their body language, their facial expression, the way they're acting versus the normative of what they're acting. And you can kind of quickly pick up on if they're either angry, distraught, sad, genuinely happy. You can pick up on these feelings that are actually true. However, they may play it off as if they're okay. Because there's been plenty of times where I've gone up to people and I've said, hey, are you doing all right? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine. And I'm like,
yeah, bullshit.
Are you sure about that? And they're like, dude, I'm fine. worries. Okay, no worries. And then I'll text them even later that day, and somehow, in some way, they choose to give me a response within the text. They choose to open up to me there, because there's this like almost barrier, this wall, that it's not okay to open up person to person, because sometimes that can be hard. Sometimes that can bring out emotions that in the general public you don't really feel like showing. You don't really want to give off those feelings of those signs of quote unquote weakness, and there's nothing weak about it. It's just natural human, feelings. We can't escape it.
And I think a lot of times people on the other end of it are, so you're talking about how you see someone and they're definitely not okay, and on the other end of the stick, some people might already be reading or trying to read your mind and saying, okay, if I do tell them that I don't feel good right now, maybe they'll just respond to me like everyone else has in the past 2 days or whatever. So that's obviously negative.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where, if you are a person who's able to pick up on someone's feelings, someone's aura, or how they're giving off signals of any of these emotions, you have to give some type of reinforcement and support and let them know that you will not ultimately judge them. You do care about them.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And for me, I think sometimes it comes from not from a standpoint of like, I don't think this person's going to care, but sometimes they're just going to be rude to me, or they're going to tell me I'm wrong or something like that. So, it's kind of different, but it all kind of comes together.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we're running out of time on this guy.
We are running out of time. So I guess we can just continue next time.
Yeah, we'll just I guess we'll make a part 2. It might be a little shorter than this, it might be just as long, but this was definitely a good conversation. I feel like the flow was very genuine, very like good talking points.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think we always kind of have good flow, even when the cameras aren't rolling. I know there's not an actual camera here.
What are you getting at here, huh?
I'm just saying, I always feel like we have a good talk, and regardless of, where we're at. But there are times where I want to rip your head off, and everyone that knows
There's
us
times where I want to
that.
rip your arms off because they're so small.
Well, man, I am the biggest man in the house. All right.
Which house we talking about?
Okay. Yeah, so I haven't been going to the gym recently, but we'll get back to that. All right, that's not the topic. So thank you guys all so much for joining with us and letting us talk to you guys more, and just sitting in and listening to our podcast. If you want to learn more,
make sure to tune in next time for part 2, and like and share. The more you share, the more we can kind of get more input of what topics we should be talking about, and the more we can spread the message of being open about everything.
Yeah. And another thing, we're not going to be like all those other fancy schmancy YouTubers and say, smash that mother and like button, because we don't care about that. What we want to know what works and what doesn't. So if you honestly dislike my voice, you say, that guy sucks, then press the dislike button. I don't care.
Actually, no, put it in the comments.
I don't even care, man. Like, if you're being honest, that's all I want from you. I want you to feel like you can be your true self, and I want you guys to feel like we're giving you something that you can run with. So
talk, we don't hit.
Exactly. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do to the internet trolls? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we're literally sitting in our house. I just want to end on a final note that when we said drug use and mental illness, drugs aren't necessarily your stereotypical things that you think about when you're thinking about drugs, but for us, we're thinking about things that actively suppress your emotions and things that can be negative and actually work against you, even when you think you're doing a really positive thing. So,
exactly.
All right, so thank you so much again. Hope to see you guys next time. See you later.
Peace.